You love to color, and the more you color, the more you love coloring. But you've noticed that you're just a little different than the average bear because you get really excited when the things you color pop right off the page. You love making things look real. That's a bit of a problem though, because here at YouTube, we're in an information desert. There are tons of blending tutorials and novelty techniques. And there's no shortage of ASMR, sketchbooky, manga marker demos. They're talented, but they're not teachers. Let me help. I'm a product illustrator. I actually do the things that you're trying to do. Today, let's talk about the easiest way to begin adding more realism to the objects in your stamps and coloring books, and even the little sketches you doodle. One of the problems with learning art here on YouTube is that there's no order to the curriculum. You can watch someone paint an amazing portrait, but then follow that up with a video on how to draw a circle. There's no filter for the information either. There are really good videos out there teaching important art concepts, but you probably can't use that info at your current level, and it might not even apply to what you want to do. We don't teach calculus to kindergartners, but the YouTube algorithm does. And there's one really big myth, and this thing has totally exploded in the YouTube marker community. It's about using photo references. Because supposedly, real artists don't use references.
All good artists draw and paint from their imagination.
Folks, I've spent years of my life in art classes and art school. There was always a reference. I illustrate professionally. Clients would be furious if I didn't use their reference. And the thing you're missing, the thing you need to add more realism to your coloring? Forget what the internet says. You need a reference. Okay, so you've either bought into the myth that you shouldn't use photo references, or maybe you only color commercial line art, and so you're never going to find a photo reference to exactly match the stamp of a groundhog in a party hat sitting underneath a palm tree at midnight.
References, they're just not for people like me.
Okay, but can I ask you something? Which candy corn is correct? So from the time this video started, there has been a piece of candy corn on screen the whole entire time. And yet right now, many of you are not sure which kernel is correct. Wouldn't it be nice to check a reference before you color it? Look, you are not a stupid person. You know a lot of stuff. But in the hierarchy of things you need to remember, the color of candy corn should not be at the top of your list. So the first purpose of reference material, whether your reference is an old piece of candy corn that you found in the back of the junk drawer, or you're looking at photographs of candy corn online, start every project with a reality check. Because a lot of what we remember is wrong. And a lot of what we know is wrong too. The human brain is very good at recognition. We all have a database in our head with millions of objects in it. As soon as we see one of those things, we recognize it instantly.
That's candy corn.
But recognition is different than recall. If we do the thing backwards, if I just say the word candy corn, the picture you pull up in your memory is fuzzier than you think. Now, people say they have a good memory, but when you actually test them on it by asking them to draw or color something from memory, you're going to be wrong more often than not. At the very least, you will not be confident about the details. And here's the thing. I said your brain is really, really good at recognition, but not so great at recall. Well, that's not just true for you. That's true for everyone. So when you color the stripes wrong and then someone else is looking at your candy corn, their spidey senses are tingling because something's not right. You're pitting their incredibly strong recognition skills against your weakest recall skills. The first rule of realistic coloring is never trigger anyone's spidey senses. Just look it up. Pages and pages of reality check references on demand. It's like the biggest benefit of the internet. Well, that and ordering nasty candy with free 24-hour delivery. Anyway, the easiest way to begin using photo references for realistic coloring is to refresh your memory. A general reality check is always the first step. Okay, so we started with a simple reality check. But now let's talk about the most important thing that artists do with references. And you can do this too. Just like before, you don't need the reference to look exactly like your project. In fact, this works so much better if your line art doesn't match the photo reference exactly. Everyone knows candy corn is a triangle, but what kind of triangle? Is the end here rounded or level? We know the candy corn is flat on two sides, but if you look down the end, is it more of an oval or is it a rounded rectangle? See what I'm doing here? It's totally natural to pick something up and turn it over in our hands and really feel the object to explore its features, which is totally doable if we're coloring candy corn. It's going to be harder next week when we color elephants. Now, perhaps this is just my technical illustration background seeping through. But if you're going to color with realism, you got to know what the real thing really looks like. From every angle. One photo reference, even if it's the same exact photo reference that the drawing was made from, one reference cannot give you a clear picture of the full three-dimensional object. Get it in your hand. If you can't do that, find photo references from several angles and really look at how the object is shaped. If it moves, how does it move? If it grows, how does it grow? The more you know, the more accurately you can color it. And I'm not asking you to dissect the candy corn or memorize its list of ingredients. Just look for three major characteristics. So observe with me now. This is easier than you think. For starters, I see that the sides are flat, but there's actually a couple of divots inside. And when I look online, I see the same divots in other brands of candy corn. So then I went to look at real corn. I think the candy maker is trying to mimic the germ part of the seed. So that divot, it's an important detail. Even if the line art doesn't have the divot, I'm adding one to my coloring anyway. The next thing I notice is that the white point, it's different than the orange and the yellow layers. They're opaque, but the white here is translucent. I can actually see parts of the orange layer through the white. Now, I don't think that's consistent with every brand, but I like that detail. So I think I'm going to do a soft, blendy edge between the white and the orange layers. The other thing I want to check out is how rounded the sides are. I mentioned this earlier, but my candy corn is more rectangular when you view it from the end. I want to explore the turn, though, on the sides, because that directly affects how I shade the sides. So there you go. That's three characteristics that I noticed. And now I understand candy corn better because I consulted several references. The other thing that I do at this point is select my colors. The yellow seems like a standard medium yellow. There's nothing fancy there. But the orange is deeper than I remembered. From memory, I think I would have said that the orange was soft and yellowish, but this is a red orange. It's more than YR09. I may need to pull out a red pencil. And maybe it's just me, but I see hints of pale purple in this photo, down at the white ends. So even though I typically underpaint with purple a lot, this photo confirms that decision for me. There is no way I'm shading the white points with gray or even blue. See how I'm researching my subject? This is what illustrators do. It's standard practice. This is what you're missing when you don't use references. To color with realism, you have to color real details, and nothing that we've done so far used a matching photo reference. You can easily do this with every stamp or sketch that you color. Okay, so now I want to let you in on the hidden secret of references. See, to the average colorist, a lot of you think that working from reference means that we duplicate everything about a photograph, every bit of detail, every bit of color. Well, no. What's the fun in that? I don't want to be a human copy machine, do you? Now, I don't blame you for this assumption because if you look at some illustrations, and even if they're not photorealistic, somehow it seems like real enough to touch. So you jump to the conclusion that we painstakingly copied every pixel of a photograph, which makes you think the answer is to get really good at copying, which honestly feels kind of wrong. But here's the thing. I don't staple a copy of my photo reference to the back of every project. And it's not like you walk into a museum and see the painting and then the reference hanging side by side. If I wasn't teaching, you would never see my references. You can't tell from looking at a finished piece of art how closely they followed the photo reference. You just assume. You've been writing off the use of photo references and making your life harder for it because you've had it hammered into your head that copying is bad. But references are not bad. References are real, and real is the key to realism. I've already shown you. Most of my photo references are just brief glances on a computer screen as I research a subject. Then here's the reference that I drew from, which isn't an exact copy either. And frankly, once I move to the colored pencil layers, all bets are off. I am done with the reference and the rest is just play. The whole point of being an artist is to play. Nobody wants to handcuff themselves to a photo reference. I would quit if that was the job. Now, I will say, I teach classes using one reference, and we follow it pretty closely. But that's because you're learning. Even then, we still don't follow it exactly, and nobody expects your project to look exactly like the photograph when we're done. References are learning tools. The training process for artists is to do lots and lots of studies. Object studies, figure studies, motion studies, color studies. And for studies, you study a reference. We duplicate what we see, and we strengthen our understanding of how things look believably real. The more you develop a good understanding, the more you can start to play. And that's the problem that I mentioned with YouTube earlier. They're telling you to play before we study. The myth about only coloring from your imagination makes it darn near impossible to learn. If you want to learn to play the piano, they don't make you compose your own concerto during the first lesson. We also don't drop newbies behind the wheel of a semi-truck and ask you to parallel park. Coloring from your imagination, it's the same thing. It's really hard to do as a beginner. Your coloring will always look unrealistic until you develop observational skills. And you can't learn to observe if you're always closing your eyes to see what's inside your head. In the beginning, as you learn to draw in color, references help you study the world around you. You gotta know what's real before you can draw or color it real. Later, as you grow and mature as an artist, references then kind of change. They become a springboard for creativity. The reference isn't the idea. It's the thing that triggers a creative pathway towards a new and unique idea. If you stop feeding your brain reference points and deny it new visual inputs, you stop growing as a colorist or as an artist. Don't deny yourself the opportunity for artistic growth just because some internet doofus bragged about art being 100% imagination. If you want to color with realism, you can't get real from between your ears. Realism starts with reality. You need references. Creativity and imagination play a big part in the artistic process, but not the way you think. Remember, I keep reminding you that YouTube feeds you art lessons in the wrong order. So if you're worried because everyone else seems more creative than you, I've got a whole video here helping explain why you're frustrated now and when to expect those creative ideas to start flowing automatically. I'll see you over there.